Hello everybody, welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome to a fresh video here on the channel. I can't believe we are already 5 games into season 2025 for North Melbourne. It's been a roller coaster ride to say the least, and I wanted to take the opportunity today to sit down, take a breath, regroup, reflect on the opening 5 games of the season, both on field, off field, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what we need to change, not just to give ourselves the best chance to take it up to Carlton in the Good Friday clash this Friday, but what we can do to hopefully sustain a competitive effort over the remainder of season 2025 and hopefully translate into a few more wins on the board. North Melbourne at the end of round 5 are sitting 1 win, 4 losses with a percentage of 80. Compare that to 12 months ago, we were sitting in 18th position on the ladder, having lost our first 5 games of the season with a percentage of 56.5. We all know that the improvement's there, and that's quite a vast improvement from where we were sitting 12 months ago. I should mention we're also sitting 15th on the ladder at the moment. So definitely an improvement from our perspective there. But if you kind of delve a little bit deeper into the way the season has unfolded so far, there's definitely been a bit of unease and unrest amongst fans because we all probably sit here and feel like we could be further in front and we could maybe at least be 1 more win on the scoreboard, and a couple of those losses could be a little bit closer. So we had a great win against the D's, round 2. We saw the very best of what we can do when we play strong, attacking, fast-moving football. We backed that up with a fairly competitive performance against the Crows over at Adelaide Oval, a ground we've never won at, in a state we haven't won at for almost 15 years now. At the time, Adelaide were white hot. They were the talk of the competition. So for us to be able to keep that scoreline about 6 goals seemed to be a fairly respectable effort at the time, but unfortunately really lackluster performances against the Swans and then more recently over the weekend against the Suns at Gather Round to follow. Couple that with the hesitation from the club to be open and to be openly dissatisfied with the results over the past couple of weeks. I think it's kind of just sent a little bit of unease and a bit of unrest amongst supporters. So I wanted to have a quick chat through all of the stats that I feel reflect both the strengths and weaknesses of our side so far in 2025. And for those of you who follow the club, and a lot of you here I would say would be passionate North fans, would follow the club closely, and a lot of those things are obvious, but it's kind of about figuring out how we can maybe fix some of those things heading into this game against Carlton on Friday night. I will do a full preview of the Good Friday clash. I can't help but feel like this game on Friday is very similar to the position we were in this time last year. We played Hawthorn in round 6 in 2024, both sides 0 and 5 to start the season. I thought we were going to go in and win that game. I was so confident going into that game against Hawthorn. I didn't even think that we weren't going to win it. Not only did we lose the game, it was probably one of our most underwhelming performances, I think, of the season. And then the way that both seasons shaped for each club following that game were chalk and cheese. Hawthorn's trajectory in season 2024 just shot up into the sky. They ended up making finals. They beat the Bulldogs in a elimination final, and they narrowly fell to Port Adelaide in the semi-final over there, whereas we only won 3 games that season, and our first win didn't come for another 6 or 7 weeks to follow, and they were really hard fought, not overly convincing wins, any of them. I guess that win against Richmond at Marvel Stadium was probably the most convincing of the lot, and it's not to say that the wins weren't great. Being a club that hasn't won a lot of games in the past few seasons, you just take what you can get at this stage. But we weren't really able to put sides away convincingly. It's been a slightly different script this season. Like I said, the game against the D's was some of the best footy I think all of us have seen from North Melbourne to finish off a game at least for quite some time. But heading into this game against Carlton, both sides sitting 1-4 at the end of round 5. Carlton started their season off 0 and 4. They absolutely punished West Coast at Gather Round over the weekend, a 70-point win for them, but it came at a cost. They lost Brodie Kemp and Harry Mackay. Neither of them will line up for Carlton on Friday. And it feels like a real crossroads moment for North. And I've said this a couple of times maybe not to that extent so far this season, but I felt like there was a lot of pressure going into the game against Sydney, and then our failure to step up in a game where there was a lot of spotlight on us and a lot of pressure was one thing, but then to fail again to back it up at Gather Round over the weekend, despite the fact that we, were in front with 6 minutes to go of the third quarter. And you can watch the full review if you want to relive any of that from the past couple of weeks. But it feels like we're at a crossroads here because this game is so winnable. And not only do we need to win this game to get our season back on track, but I think we need to win this game for the sake of Good Friday football. The average losing margin for North Melbourne on Good Friday has been 10 goals since the game started. The first year, we lost by 3 points to the Bulldogs. The second year, we came out and we beat St Kilda quite convincingly after a very gritty, grueling first half. The floodgates opened in the second and we just proved too strong for the Saints. But it's kind of been shellacking after shellacking after shellacking for North after that, at the hands of the Dogs, at the hands of Essendon, and at the hands of Carlton as well. So it's the third time we line up against the Blues on Good Friday. It feels like the fixture from an off-field perspective is right. It's been a sellout the past few seasons. I got a text message today say that the game was sold out. And I really hope every North supporter gets there and gets behind the boys, because I feel like this is kind of it. I feel like there's been no better opportunity for us to perform on a big stage in recent seasons than this particular fixture against Carlton on Friday. I think they would be feeling nervous. I think it's a dead even game. I think given where we've come from over the past few seasons compared to where Carlton's come from in the past few seasons, and then the football that each side has put on display so far in 2025, I think it's going to be a really hot contest. And I'm not sitting here saying that one team is a certainty over the other. I genuinely think it's a 50-50 game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how we match up against the Blues. I guess what works in our favour in this particular instance is that they have one key forward, one of their regular key forwards in Charlie Curnow heading into this game. Whoever else they call on, whether it's Silvani, whether it's Mitch McGovern, whether it's Lewis Young, I don't know who fills that role. It's not really... I don't really care, not in a rude way, but I'm more focused on what North's going to be able to do to tighten up their defence and to give themselves the best opportunity to win this game. I've got some key stats here. I've got my laptop open, and there's a few stats so far in season 2025 that have really caught my eye. The first one is North is ranked number 1 for disposal efficiency in the competition with a disposal efficiency of 77.2, which I feel like is a bit of a surprise, but also not at the same time. I think a lot of North's game style, while it doesn't look like our strongest game style, has been to chip the ball around and kind of regain control of the ball, particularly in the back half of the ground. We look like we are less willing to take the game on from the back half of the ground unless it really is a clear paddock and clear run in front of us. There's a lot of chipping around the back line, a lot of short uncontested marking, and that's really just to control the ball and steady a few nerves, moving the ball out of our defense. That's definitely, the defense has been a real issue. Team defense has been a real issue for North, and I think that's the issue for North at the moment to start off season 2025. So a lot of those are just short kicks to players in space. It's not necessarily moving the ball up the ground. It's not necessarily working to our advantage. So maybe that's where it does come from. I do feel like there are a lot of turnovers as well, which have really been a problem for us. And it's a problem for every side, obviously. But ours seem to be really bad, and when we do turn the ball over, it's not so much the turnovers, it's our inability to combat the side when they burst back the other way. So disposal efficiency, it's really good to know that that is a strong point for us. Like I said, I don't know how diluted it is with those chip kicks around the half back that we do see quite often in the game when we are looking to slow the pace a little bit and control the ball, but we are ranked number 1 in the competition for that. We are also ranked 3rd in the competition for goal efficiency at 28.4%, and we're 2nd overall in the competition for scoring efficiency when we enter the forward 50. Great. The problem is we're 15th in the competition for inside 50s and 15th for shots on goal. So we're getting the ball, or I should say when we're getting the ball into our forward 50, it's awesome. And more often than not, we're able to have a shot on goal. We're lining up, someone's lining up, and our forward line is functioning really, really well. Larkey and Curtis have both had incredible starts to the season. Adding Jack Darling as another dimension in that forward line, not only has he changed the way that the defense have to line up on our opposition, but he's also chipped in and kicked 6 goals to start the season, which has been great. Cam Zurhaar's been a little bit in and out. He hasn't been as consistent as the other 3, I wouldn't have thought, but he has contributed every game in some way, and if he's not stepping up, then Constanti's chipping in. Zane Dersma on the weekend kicked 2 goals, and then you're getting some scoring opportunities from LDU or for Harry Sheasel, Powell, Scott, everyone sort of chipped in. So that's been really, really pleasing, and our forward line is functioning much better, but it's that last kick inside the forward 50 where we seem to break down. It's been a problem for years. This year is not an exception. It's that dump kick, that long bomb inside the forward 50. Part of that, and someone did point this out to me on Twitter during the week, part of that could be our failure to present at the ball and to present to our midfielders. And I feel like this is an issue we have when we're also trying to execute and leave our defensive 50. I feel like we're quite stagnant across the ground. I feel like there aren't really a lot of players running for the ball or trying to create space for our defenders, to be able to give them an option in the middle of the ground to then sort of unleash that handball and that fast moving ball throughout the middle of the ground. And maybe that's why there's been a little bit of a breakdown. That's why we've been quite slow to move the ball out of our defensive 50. Equally, maybe our forwards aren't working hard enough to lead into space for our midfielders to hit them lace out on the chest, because it's a lot of long bombs into the forward 50, and a lot of it is us winning the clearance and just trying to get that hurried kick into the forward 50. And maybe the idea behind that partially is to have a Darling in there to spoil the ball, bring it to ground, and then you've got the likes of a Constanti or a Curtis or a Zurhaar crumbing at the bottom of the pack. But the issue for us, while the theory is great, often it's just an intercept mark to the opposition. And so that whole theory, in theory, just goes out the window. And that, I think, is quite an issue for us. And that's definitely been a problem for us. This isn't a new problem either. Like I said, it's definitely a problem we've had for quite some time. So if we're able to just move a little bit more and maybe just try and create more options for ourselves, then when we actually do get an opportunity inside 50, we are clearly making the most of it. Part of me feels like this comes down to fitness. And the reason I say that is also because of the defense. We seem to play more of a zone defense, and it allows teams to poke holes through us all throughout the ground. And it's like they just uncontestedly move the ball up the ground, and then often they have an uncontested mark inside forward 50 because we're too slow on the zone. I feel like we do need to play more of a man-on-man, more of a high-pressure game style. But then maybe we're not doing that because we're not fit enough. And the Gold Coast Suns game is a really good example of that. We were 25 points down halfway through the second quarter. We were able to work our way back into the game. I understand it was hot, understand it was tricky conditions, but we weren't the only side out there. The Suns were out there too. Every single team played across the entire weekend. All of the games were played outdoors. There's no undercover stadiums there. So it's one of those things that you just wonder, right? Like, how do we improve our fitness to be able to create more space? How do we improve our fitness to move from a zone to a man-on-man defense? Are we playing a zone defense because of fitness, or are we playing a zone defense because we don't trust the personnel? Are our individual players not good enough? Griffin Logue has looked not fantastic since he's returned from injury. Last week against the Swans, I thought maybe he was underdone, maybe we rushed him back. But against the Suns, he was throwing himself at everything, and he did do some nice things, but he was also quite costly at the same time. Aiden Core, there's only so much he can do. Charlie Comben is more of this free-flowing hybrid intercepting defender rather than a man-on-man, one-on-one defender, because that's not his strong suit. While Luke McDonald has been really good this season, he has been having to do it on his own because Jackson Archer's been out for most of the year. So it's a lot of questions, and I don't know if it's one or the other or a combo. Fitness definitely seems to be some sort of issue for us because we are unable to run our games. And like I said, the game against the Suns was a perfect example. We worked our way back into the game, but then we ended up losing the game by almost 9 goals, and the way they were just able to get on a run in the fourth quarter in particular was quite worrying and quite troublesome for us. So It's really hard to know at this stage, but those seem to be some of the key issues that we do have. And in terms of defensive stats, we're 10th overall for tackles. We are 17th in the competition for 1%ers. So we might do one good thing, but when the ball is there to be won, we're not following up with a second or a third effort. And we're 15th in the competition for intercepts because we just are quite lax. And it seems like we play quite far off our man. And that comes back to this zone defense. It's not just the defenders. And I want to make that really, really clear. There's definitely an issue with a team defense from a inside 50 point of view. We don't maybe put enough pressure on the ball to create more contests, to hold the ball inside our forward 50 often enough, put pressure on the opposition. Often at times they just walk the ball out of our attacking 50 and off they go on their merry way. And then in the midfield, we do have a lot of very strong attacking players in the midfield, and I understand that our best footy is this high pace, high attacking football, and that's where the likes of an LDU or a Sheasel or a Carlton come into play. But when the ball is there to be won, we need the likes of a Will Phillips win the ball back, and we need the likes of a George Wardlaw back in the side to add a little bit of grunt and brutality and physicality. We don't really have a lot of physicality, and I wish we would put someone like Cam Zurhaar into the middle of a ground just for a spell, for a 10-15 minute spell. He's angry. He's a pretty fired up player, and I think the more we can try and involve him in play and the more we can kind of get him involved in the game, maybe in the middle of the ground, maybe that gives us something different. Luke Parker is kind of the one at the moment who's playing the most defensive out of the rest. And I've spoken about the game against Melbourne till I'm black and blue in the face already. But LDU, that was one of his best games I've ever seen him play because he was tackling so ferociously and he was hunting the ball so ferociously. I think we just kind of got to get a bit angry. And we kind of got to get a bit of grunt and a bit of grit into us because so often we just allow opposition to kind of do what they please and we don't apply enough pressure, and we aren't at a stage where we're clean enough or good enough to rely on the attacking game alone. No side is good enough because we are not only, well, the stats would maybe say that we are okay when it comes to disposal, but we are still a bottom four side at the end of the day. We aren't, we definitely have looked much improved and we do look really exciting and we have come a long way in the past few months. But what we thought was going to happen in the preseason, it just hasn't really translated so far in 2025. And I think the other difficult part about it is that we're not really getting a lot from the club. I kind of struggle with this a little bit and I'm kind of in two minds about it when it comes to Clarko. I think a lot of people have maybe accused him of being guarded and being repetitive and just erring on the side of caution with what he says. But think about the treatment that Clarko has received from the media and from the AFL over the past couple of seasons. It kind of just feels like a bit of a witch hunt. He isn't allowed to coach on the boundary line anymore. He's had warning on fine. And you kind of wonder how much of that has really impacted his ability to coach. Maybe not coach, but his ability to be honest when he's speaking to fans, when he's speaking to the media, when he's in press conferences. I feel like everything he does has to be calculated, and he's kind of been a victim of circumstance to an extent. And I really feel like there's been a real witch hunt around Clarko. And I just hope that maybe it's impacting what you and I see whenever he fronts the media, but I just hope it's not impacting his coaching. And I wouldn't have thought that it would have. But then let someone else front the media, a player, and let them say what we want to hear. Charlie Comben in his press conferences is so refreshingly honest. And I love every opportunity we get to see him front the camera. I also love it when I see Luke McDonald take on a media press conference or a post-game chat with the club because his honesty is really refreshing. I'd love to see it from Jai. I feel like Jai has been really, really good as a solo captain on field, bar a few key turnovers at key points in that game against the Gold Coast Suns. But I think he's done more good than he has negative so far in this solo captaincy role from an on-field perspective. But I don't think we've heard enough from him off-field. It shouldn't be Luke Parker or Luke McDonald speaking to the media. Yes, you've got your vice captains in Harry Sheasel and Nick Larkey, and they do their fair share of media and they do their fair share of representing this club to the external football world. But I don't think Jai's done it enough, and I think we really need it from him, especially at this point in the season where we are heading into a game that it feels like our season really could be on the line here. And it's that crossroads moment. I kind of feel like I've said this the last couple of weeks, there's pressure building and that there's some opportunities here if we can, just back ourselves in and win the game. But this is really a crossroads moment. It's the exact same thing we faced 12 months ago, only this time we really need to stand up and be better. We can't just lay flat. We can't just let them intimidate us and run all over the top of us, because if we can't, I don't even want to say if we can't be competitive, if we can't win this game, there's serious questions are going to be asked. And I think there's going to be a lot of fans who are going to really start to turn and probably show a lot of disinterest. And the proof is there. Like, we know what needs to be done. We know what needs to be fixed. We need people to come into this side to fix those issues. And I understand that a big part of being able to win games is consistency and cohesion when it comes to players. And I've been really vocal about only making the required changes when needed. But I do think changes are needed, particularly from a defensive point of view. Hopefully, Jackson Archer will be okay to come back into the side. Hopefully, George Wardlaw will come back into this side as well. There's definitely a few players that could make way. I think Will Phillips really needs to be looked at. A lot of people criticise Will Phillips for maybe not doing enough offensively, but look what he's doing defensively. We don't have any player doing that at the moment. And I just feel like we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Our defense across the board is suffering, and he is someone that can drastically improve that in the short term anyway. And I don't think we can neglect this any longer. We made the big call last week and dropped Bailey Scott, someone who 12 months ago would be undroppable because there was no pressure coming from underneath. Now's the time to have a look at Will Phillips, have a look at George Wardlaw, have a look at Jackson Archer, maybe even have another look at Toby Pink, and think who in this side is underperforming and who in this side are we going to have to make way for players who are going to fix and fill those deficiencies and hopefully get us closer to that second victory and get our season back on track and give us a little bit of reward for effort, because we have been competitive in, I would say, with the exception of probably the Sydney game, where I don't feel like we were legitimately a sniff at any point. All the other games so far this season, we've looked really competitive and we looked very dangerous for big periods of time. So now we need to find a way to actually sustain that across 3.5 to 4 quarters rather than 1.5 to 2 quarters, and put ourselves really in the frame to win the game. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really looking forward to Good Friday. It couldn't come quick enough. It's been a really long time since I've seen us step up and perform at large on the Easter stage, and now is a really great time to do so. How do you guys think we are sitting after 5 games in season 2025? Leave all of your thoughts in the comments below. We can continue the conversation over on socials as well. Kanga TV Show on Instagram, on X, and on Facebook. I will see you in the next couple of days for a preview of the Good Friday game. And fingers crossed, all roads lead to our second victory of season 2025. I'll see you soon.